I want you to picture a scenario. It's a scenario I think every single person listening to this has been in, probably in the last month, maybe even in the last 24 hours.
The stakes are high already.
It's high stakes.
Yeah.
You're in an argument. Maybe it's with your spouse. Maybe it's your boss. Or, maybe it's that one friend who always seems to be in some kind of crisis.
Okay, I'm with you.
You're 5 minutes into this argument, and suddenly you get this sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach. A feeling of deja vu.
You realize you've been here before.
Exactly. It's not just that you've had this argument before. It's that you know exactly what they are going to say next. You can hear the line coming before they even open their mouth.
And worse, you know exactly what you were going to shout back.
Even worse than that, you know exactly how bad you're going to feel when it's all over.
But you do it anyway.
That's the thing. You keep doing it. You play your part perfectly, hitting every mark, delivering every line with the right amount of venom or self-pity. It's like you're reading from a script you didn't write.
That is because in a very real, very frightening psychological sense, you are.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are cracking open one of the most influential, slightly terrifying, and I think absolutely game-changing books in the history of psychology. We are talking about Dr. Eric Berne's 1964 classic, Games People Play.
And honestly, calling it a classic feels like a bit of an understatement. This book sold 5 million copies. It stayed on the bestseller list for, 2 years? It basically invented the vocabulary of pop psychology.
It really did. But don't let the title fool you. When we say games, we aren't talking about Monopoly. We aren't talking about hide and seek well.
Actually, we sort of are talking about hide and seek in a way.
Right, a version where the stakes are your marriage, your career, and your sanity.
It's about the unconscious calculated maneuvers that dictate our daily interactions. It's the hidden layer of communication, the stuff happening under the surface.
And today, we're going to decode that secret language. We're going to find out why asking for help is often a trap designed to make you fail. We're going to look at why spilling soup on a host is actually a way to get a secret reward.
And, maybe the most mind-blowing one, why some people are unconsciously programmed to marry someone who restricts their freedom just so they can complain about it.
It's all in there. Our mission today is to move from being a pawn in these social schemes to being a player with what Berne calls autonomy.
It's a huge promise, but the book really delivers the framework for it.
I love this topic because it explains so much of that why do I keep doing that frustration we all feel. But before we get to the games themselves, and we have some really juicy ones to cover, we have to start with the why. Why on earth do we play these games if they make us miserable?
We have to start with the biology, and I mean the really primal evolutionary biology. Berne opens the book with a concept that is honestly a little harrowing. He talks about stimulus hunger.
This was the part of the notes that actually gave me chills. There's this line Berne uses, it's a colloquialism, where he says, if you are not stroked, your spinal cord will shrivel up.
Graphic image, isn't it? Spinal cord shriveling. Sounds like something from a horror movie. But he's basing this on hard science, specifically the work of researchers like René Spitz in the 1940s.
Tell us about that research, because it's so tragic, but it's incredibly revealing.
It is. Spitz studied infants in orphanages. And these were children who, on paper, had their basic physical needs met. They were fed, they were kept warm, they had a roof over their heads, they had hygiene.
The essentials.
The bare essentials. But because the orphanages were terribly understaffed, they were deprived of handling, they just weren't held. They weren't cuddled. They weren't touched.
And the assumption back then might have been, well, as long as they have food and shelter, they'll be fine.
Exactly. But they weren't fine. Far from it. They sank into this state called marasmus, a kind of decline. They became listless. They became highly susceptible to disease. And a significant number of them actually died.
They just died from a lack of touch.
They effectively withered away. It was called hospitalism. It proved that this stimulus hunger is real and it's physical.
That is wild. So human contact isn't just a nice to have. It's not just an emotional comfort. It is a biological imperative.
It's a matter of life and death. The reticular activating system in the brainstem, the part that basically keeps you awake and alert, it needs constant stimulation to keep the organism alive and developing. For an infant, that stimulation is primarily physical touch.
Okay, so if we don't get touched, we die. I get that for babies. But I'm looking at you right now, and we are sitting at a polite distance. If I walked up to my boss tomorrow and started patting his head because I needed stimulation...
You'd need more than stimulation. You'd need a new job.
Right. I'm pretty sure I'd be fired.
You would be escorted out by security, yes. And that is the central dilemma of human existence that Berne points out. As we grow up, society imposes rules. We are forced to distance ourselves. We can't just go around hugging and touching everyone we meet to satisfy this biological hunger.
So what do? We're starving for touch, but we're not allowed to touch. It's a paradox.
We compromise. We learn to accept symbolic substitutes. We trade the literal physical stroking for social recognition.
So a smile, a nod.
A smile, a nod, a handshake, or even just a word. In transactional analysis, which is the whole field Berne founded, the fundamental unit of social action is called a stroke.
A stroke. So saying hello is a stroke.
Yes, hello is a stroke. A compliment like nice tie is a positive.
What about an insult?
An insult is a negative stroke. It's an acknowledgement of presence, even if it's a painful. It's a unit of recognition.
It's basically the currency of human interaction.
That's a perfect analogy. Think of it like a bank account. You wake up every morning with a zero balance. Your biology demands that you earn a certain number of strokes just to feel alive, to keep your psychological spinal cord from shriveling.
And different people have different budgets, different stroke quotas.
Absolutely. Berne uses this great comparison. Think of a movie actor, a massive celebrity. They might need hundreds, maybe thousands of strokes a week, applause, fan mail, adoration, just to maintain their equilibrium. Their entire system is calibrated for a high turnover of strokes.
Versus, say, the introverted scientist working in a lab somewhere.
Right. That scientist might survive, even thrive, on one stroke a year from a respected master who just looks at their work and says, good job.
That one high-value stroke fuels them for 12 months?
It could. But the bottom line is, we all crave that contact. We are all desperate for strokes.
This leads to the second hunger Berne talks about. So we have stimulus hunger, the need for strokes. But then we have structure hunger.
Structure hunger is fascinating. It's essentially the fear of boredom. But boredom is too light a word. It's more like a terror of the social hiatus.
Explain that. What is the social hiatus?
Imagine you're at a dinner party. You're talking to someone you don't know well. The conversation lulls. There is a silence. A long, awkward silence.
Oh, I hate that. My skin starts to crawl. I will say literally anything to fill that gap. Do you think the walls are perpendicular tonight? Anything to stop the silence.
That panic you feel, that is structure hunger. We are existentially terrified of unstructured time, because unstructured time with another person forces one of two things on us.
Which are?
Either we have to look inward, which would be scary, or it forces us to engage in real, unguarded intimacy with the other person, which for most of us is even scarier.
So we need a container. We need a way to fill the time so we don't have to face the abyss.
Exactly. We structure our time to avoid that abyss. Berne says we have a few ways of doing it. The simplest are ritual.
Like, hello, how are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you? It's a script. Get your couple of strokes, structures a few seconds, then you have pastime.
How about those 49ers? Or talking about the weather?
Right. Just filling time with semi-ritualized chatter.
Yeah.
But when we need something more intense, something that provides more strokes and structures more time, we use games.
So we play games not necessarily because they're fun, but because they serve a function. They keep us busy and they get us strokes.
Even if those strokes are negative. And this is a key point we need to nail down before we go further. To the human nervous system, a negative stroke being yelled at, being criticized, is better than no stroke at all.
Being hated is better than being ignored.
Being ignored is psychological death. Being hated is at least engagement, the powerful transaction. That explains why people stay in abusive relationships, or why kids act out to get attention, or why adults pick fights over nothing.
They're farming for strokes, even if they are painful ones.
They're starving, and they'll take any food they can get.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly. We are hungry for contact, and we are terrified of silence. So we structure our time with these things called games. Now, before we get into the specific games, we need to understand the players. Because Berne has this really compelling theory that we aren't just one person.
We're three people in a trench coat?
In a manner of speaking, yes. This is the core of his structural analysis. Berne argues that the human personality is divided into three distinct ego states.
The parent, the adult, and the child.
Correct. And we need to be very clear here. He's not saying these are just roles we play, like an actor putting on a mask.
No, he says these are psychological realities. They are phenomenological states. They have their own distinct patterns of thought, feeling, and behavior.
Meaning you can actually see them, like physically see the change.
You can see the switch happen. If I'm talking to you and suddenly my posture stiffens, my voice drops a register, my brow furrows, and I start pointing my finger, I have physically and psychologically shifted into a different state of being.
I feel like I've seen that happen to people. It's almost like a possession.
In a way, the person is being taken over by one of these internal states.
Okay, so let's break them down. Who are these three people inside us? Let's start with...
The parent is, quite simply, the recording. Think of your brain as a tape recorder. From birth to about age 5, you recorded everything your actual parents did and said.
Everything.
Their tone of voice, their rules, their warnings, their facial expressions, how they made breakfast. It's all stored in there, unedited, taught concept of life.
So when I'm yelling at a driver who cut me off and I hear myself using the exact same phrase my dad used to use,
that is your parent talking. Berne calls it exteropsychic. It comes from an external source. You're just hitting play on the recording of your father.
And I assume the parent isn't just critical, right? My mom was also very comforting.
Absolutely. There are two sides. There's the critical parent, which says things like you're doing it wrong, or you should be ashamed, or always check both ways. And then there's the nurturing parent.
The nurturing parent would say.
Oh, you poor thing. Come here, have some soup. It's okay, everyone makes mistakes.
Okay.
Both are recordings of how you were treated or how you saw your parents treat others, like your siblings.
Okay, that makes sense. Then we have the child. Now, Berne is very specific about this. Child does not mean childish.
Correct. Childish is an insult. It's a derogatory word used by the parent. The child ego state is a technical term. It's the archaeopsychic state. It's the relic of who you were when you were little. It's the recording of your internal events, your feelings in response to the external events you were experiencing. Felt concept of life.
So the joy, the fear, it's all still there.
It's all still alive inside you. The child is where your intuition comes from, your creativity, your spontaneity, the ability to just enjoy a sunset or laugh at a silly joke. That comes from the child.
But it's also the source of the bad feeling.
Yes. It also contains the fear, the shame, the compliance, the feeling of not okayness.
So when you're in a high-stakes meeting and the CEO frowns at your slide and your stomach just drops and you suddenly feel small and want to hide.
That is your child taking over. In that moment, psychologically, you are not a 45-year-old executive. You are 5 years old and you just broke a vase and you are terrified of being scolded. The feeling is just as real and just as powerful.
And sitting between these two, the taught concept and the felt concept is the adult.
The adult is the computer, the data processor, the thought concept of life. The adult doesn't deal in feelings from the past, and it doesn't deal in rules from the past. It deals in present reality. It deals in facts. It estimates probabilities.
Berne uses the example of crossing a highway, right? I love this.
It's the perfect example. Let's say you're standing by the side of a busy road. The parent inside you might scream, "Highways are dangerous. Don't you dare cross. Look both ways."
That's the recording from your actual parents.
Right. And the child inside you might see a puppy on the other side and say, "Ooh, a puppy. I want to run and get it."
That's the impulse, the desire.
And the adult.
The adult is the one that actually gets you across safely.
Yes. The adult looks left, looks right, estimates the speed of the oncoming truck, calculates the distance, calculates your own running speed, and decides, based on the data, we can cross safely in 4.5 seconds. Objective. It's rational.
So a healthy, functioning person has all three, and they are all active.
Absolutely. You need all three. You need the parent to automate things like social niceties. That's just how we do it. So you don't have to think about every single interaction from scratch. You need the child for creativity, fun, and intimacy. And you need the adult to keep you alive and navigating reality.
Problem, and this is where the games start, is when these states get mixed up in how we talk to each other. This is the transaction part of transactional analysis.
Right. A transaction is just a unit of social intercourse. I say something, that's the stimulus. You say something back, that's the response.
So let's do a simple one. If I, acting from my adult, ask you, do you know what time it is? And you, from your adult, say, it's 3 o'clock. That's a good transaction.
That is a complementary transaction, adult to adult. The lines in the diagram are parallel. Communication is smooth. It can, in theory, go on forever.
You can also have a complementary parent-to-child one.
Sure. A nurturing mother talking to her feverish kid. She says from her parent, "You need to stay in bed, sweetie." He says from his child, "Okay, mommy." It's complementary. It works.
What if I ask an adult question like, do you know where my cufflinks are? And you snap back, you always blame me for everything. Find them yourself.
Now we have a problem, a big one. You sent an adult stimulus asking for data. Where are the cufflinks? But the respondent answered from their child, the defensive, scolded child. And they were talking not to your adult, but to their perception of your critical parent.
So the lines on the diagram cross.
They cross. This is a cross transaction. And the first rule of communication in TA is when a transaction is crossed, communication stops.
And an argument begins.
Exactly. We think we're arguing about cufflinks, but we're actually having this hidden argument about, why are you yelling at me like my mother used to? Or why are you acting like a helpless baby?
That explains so many. But games. Games are even trickier than just crossed wires. Games rely on what Berne calls ulterior transactions.
This is where it gets spicy. This is the secret sauce of all games. In an ulterior transaction, two things are happening at the exact same time. There's the social level, what we say out loud, and the psychological level, what we actually mean.
A classic example in the book is the cowboy and the visitor.
It's a classic for a reason. A cowboy says to a female visitor, "Come see the barn." Visitor says, "I've loved barns since I was a little girl."
On the surface, the social level, this is an adult-to-adult conversation about architecture and agriculture.
Correct. Two adults discussing farm buildings. Perfectly innocent. But on the psychological level, what's happening?
It's the child talking to the child.
It's a flirtation game.
Yeah.
The psychological meaning is, let's go play in the hay. And the answer is, I'm game.
And Berne says the outcome of the transaction is always determined by the psychological level, not the social.
Always. You can talk about barns all day, but if the psychological level is sex, the outcome is good. The social conversation is just a cover story.
This is so good. The salesman example is another great one. The salesman says to the customer, "This model is better, but you probably can't afford it."
Okay, so on the social level, that's an adult-to-adult statement of fact. Model A is superior to Model B. Model A has a higher price.
But on the psychological level, he's not talking to the customer's adult.
He is talking directly to the customer's child. He's saying, "I'll bet you're not good enough to have this." And the customer's defiant child rises up and says, "Oh yeah, I'll show you," and buys the more expensive model to prove him wrong.
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you. It's a calculated move.
Okay, this brings us to the formal definition of a game. A game isn't just a hidden transaction. It has a specific formula. I love a good.
It's a very precise mechanism. It goes like this: con plus gimmick, response whoosh, switch payoff.
Okay, let's unpack that. Con plus gimmick.
The con is the bait. I want to hook you into my game, so I say or do something with a hidden motive. The gimmick is your weakness or your need that makes you bite the hook.
So in the salesman example, his con is the affordability challenge, and my gimmick is my insecurity or pride.
Exactly. You provide the response, you buy the car. Then there's the switch. The moment the trap snaps shut, the roles change.
And finally, the payoff.
The payoff, and this is crucial, the payoff isn't money. It's rarely fun. The payoff is a feeling, usually a bad one.
Berne calls them trading stamps, right?
Yes. Like the old S&H green stamps. We collect feelings. Some people collect books of anger stamps. Some collect depression stamps. Some collect self-righteousness stamps.
And when you have enough books filled with these stamps, you cash them in for a prize.
You cash them in. But the prize is rarely a vacation. The prize is a justifiable divorce, a suicide attempt, a massive blowout drunk, or just a really good weekend-long sulk.
We are farming for drama because we need the strokes and we need to validate our life script.
You've got it. We play games to get feelings that confirm our deepest, earliest beliefs about ourselves and the world.
This is starting to make sense in a way that's kind of terrifying. Let's look at a concrete example. The most common game played at parties, in offices, everywhere. Why don't you yes, but?
Why DYB? If you have a friend who constantly complains but never, ever takes your advice, you are playing this game with them.
Oh, I have this friend. I think we all do. Let's call him. Steve hates his job. Every single time we get a beer, he talks about how much he hates his job.
Okay, let's play it out. You be the helpful friend, I'll be Steve. I start, "Man, I just hate this job. My boss is a nightmare. The pay is terrible. The commute is killing me."
And I, wanting to be a good friend and adult offering solutions, say, "Well, Steve, why don't you update your resume and look for something new?"
"Yes, but I've been so busy with the kids, I just don't have time to sit down and write a proper resume."
Okay, that's fair. Well, why don't you just talk to your boss about a transfer to a different department? Maybe something with less pressure.
"Yes, but my boss is really vindictive. If I even mention wanting to leave his team, he'll probably just fire me on the spot."
Okay. Well, why don't you look at a different industry altogether? You've always been good with your hands. Maybe something in the trades?
"Yes, but I'd have to take a huge pay cut to start as an apprentice, and with the mortgage rates the way they are, we just can't afford that."
And eventually, after about 5 more rounds of this, I just stop. I give up. I sit there and drink my beer and think, well, I guess you're screwed, Steve.
And in that moment of silence, Steve has won the game.
How is that a win? He's still stuck in the job he hates. That doesn't feel like winning.
That's because you're looking at the social level.
Yeah.
On the social level, it looks like two adults talking about careers. But on the psychological level, what's happening?
He's not an adult looking for help.
He's a child talking to a group of parents. And his secret thesis is, nobody can help me. My problems are unsolvable. His goal isn't to get solutions. His goal is to reject solutions.
He wants to prove I'm useless.
He wants to stump the wise parents. By rejecting every single thing you offer, he validates his own passivity. He gets to go home and say, "See, Even my smart friend can't fix this. So I'm justified in doing nothing and just continuing to complain.
That is incredibly frustrating.
And that frustration you feel, that's your payoff. You get to feel misunderstood or inadequate. He gets to feel smugly self-righteous. That's his payoff. He wins.
So how do I stop it? Because I really want to help my friend, but I also sometimes want to strangle him.
You have to play what Berne calls the antithesis. You have to refuse the role of the wise parent. You have to stop offering solutions.
So when he says, I hate my job, what do I say instead of, why don't you? You respond from your adult to his adult. You say, that sounds really tough, Steve. What are you going to do about it?
Ooh, that's cold. It's not cold. It's adult. You are throwing the ball back into his court. You're treating him like a capable adult, not a helpless child. If he actually wants help, he'll say, well, I was thinking of uploading my resume. Could you look it over? But if he's just playing the game,
it shuts him down instantly.
The game can't proceed.
I am definitely trying that next time. Okay, another party game Berne mentions is Schlemiel.
This is a Yiddish term for a clumsy, awkward person.
Yeah.
In the game Schlemiel, white is the guest who spills soup on the hostess's white dress or burns a cigarette hole in the new carpet.
The klutz. And then they apologize profusely.
Oh, endlessly. I am so sorry. How clumsy of me. I will pay for the cleaning. I feel terrible. Can you ever forgive me?
And the host, Black, naturally, because we are polite, says, oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Accidents happen.
Right. Now, what's the game? Most people think the game is the act of making the mess. But Berne says no. The mess is just a move. The game is the forgiveness.
Wait, really? The goal is to be forgiven?
White gets a certain sadistic pleasure from making a mess. Perhaps it's a hidden aggression against the host for having such a nice house. But the real payoff comes when he forces the host to be a good sport.
He messes up your things, and then you have to hug him and tell him it's okay.
That is diabolical, isn't it? He gets to destroy your property, and you have to comfort him for it. He gets absolution. That's his payoff.
So what's the antithesis? You can't just yell at him.
You do not offer the expected forgiveness. Berne suggests a cold adult response.
What, you just say, yeah, you ruined my rug. That'll be $200.
You could. Or you could say, tonight you can embarrass my wife, but please just don't spill on the furniture. You don't give the absolution, you deny him the payoff.
That sounds incredibly risky. Everyone at the party would think you're a massive jerk.
Breaking games is always socially risky. You are disrupting the script. You are refusing to play your assigned part. People don't like it when you change the rules.
Let's move to the domestic battlefield. Marital games. This is where the stakes get really high. Berne talks about a game called If It Weren't For You.
IWFY. Berne says this is perhaps the most common game played between spouses. The setup is this. Mrs. White complains that her domineering husband restricts her life.
So she tells her friends, I've always wanted to learn to dance, but he won't let me. Or, I'd love to go back to art school, but he says we can't afford it.
Right. She presents herself as this creative, vibrant soul being crushed by a tyrannical husband. She feels oppressed.
And her payoff is self-righteous. If it weren't for him, I could be amazing. She gets sympathy from her friends.
That's the game in motion. But here is the twist. The husband finally relaxes the restriction. Maybe he goes to therapy, or he just gets tired of the complaining. He says, okay, dear, you're right. Take the dance classes. Here's the checkbook.
And she goes.
She goes. And she discovers she is terrified of dance floors. She has a phobia. She freezes up. She can't do it.
Whoa. So the husband wasn't the problem.
The husband was the solution to her problem. She chose a domineering husband on purpose so that he would forbid her from doing the very things she was secretly terrified of doing anyway.
That is completely mind-bending. So his strictness was actually a service to her.
Precisely. It was a psychological contract. It allowed her to pretend she was brave and adventurous while staying safe from her own fears. He gets to feel powerful and controlling, a parent payoff, and she gets to feel like the restricted but noble child.
But if he stops playing, if he says, go ahead, her entire game collapses.
And she has to face her own neurosis. Berne notes that unless she finds a way to achieve real autonomy, she may fall into despair or start playing much harder games like State Hospital.
That explains why sometimes when a partner changes and becomes better, stops drinking, gets less controlling, the relationship falls apart.
Yes, because the game was the glue. If you remove the game, you leave a void of unstructured time. If they don't find a new, healthier way to structure their time like real intimacy, the marriage can dissolve because the structural bond is gone.
There's another one called Corner. I think I've been in this one. It feels very familiar.
Quarter is purely manipulative, and its goal is avoidance. Let's say a couple plans to go to a movie. They both say they want to go, but unconsciously, they're afraid of the intimacy that might happen after the movie. Maybe their sex life is rocky and a date night feels like pressure.
So they need an excuse, a way out that doesn't make them the bad guy.
Right. So Mrs. White, just as they are about to leave, accidentally mentions that the house needs painting. Now, she knows Mr. White is stressed about money. She knows this is a sore subject. It's a calculated move.
She pushes the big red button.
She pushes the button. Mr. White predictably explodes. Why do you always bring up money when we're trying to have a nice evening? Can't you just let it go for one night? He gets rude. He slams a door.
And then she can say, well, I'm certainly not going to the movies with you now, not if you're going to be in a mood like that.
Slam. She wins. The game is over. She gets to stay home, which is what her child secretly wanted, but she gets to feel blameless. Her adult can tell itself, I wanted to go, but he ruined it.
And he feels justified in being angry because she brought up a stressful topic at the worst time. They're both cornered into a non-intimate evening, which was the unconscious goal all along.
They both get to feel righteously indignant. A very satisfying payoff for both of them.
It's so devious. And then there's Sweetheart. This one sounds nice, but I have a feeling it isn't.
It's insidious. You're at a dinner party. A husband tells a story that's subtly demeaning to his wife. My wife's so funny. She tried to bake a cake last week and used salt instead of sugar. It was inedible. Isn't that right, sweetheart?
Ugh. The public roast disguised as affection.
The sweetheart tag at the end is the whole trap. It's a parent-to-child transaction disguised as adult-to-adult. If she gets angry or defends herself, she looks like a shrew. Can't you take a joke? But if she agrees and smiles, she accepts the humiliation.
The only way to win is not to play.
Or to play the antithesis. Berne suggests answering the sweetheart question with a totally ambiguous, cool, yes, honey. It gives no emotional payoff. Or, more aggressively, telling a similar story about him. Yes, dear, just like the time you tried to fix the sink and flooded the kitchen, sweetheart.
Fighting fire with fire. Okay, now let's get into the darker stuff. Berne talks about toxic or hard games. These aren't just about social fiction. They are genuinely destructive.
And the most famous one, and perhaps the most descriptively named, is Now I've Got You, You Son of a Bitch.
Naiji Sabin. It's quite an acronym.
It's a game of waiting. Think of a poker player or a boss who watches you like a hawk. They aren't watching to see you succeed. They are watching for a mistake. They are looking for a slip-up.
And when you make it,
they pounce. Berne uses the classic example of a child breaking a vase. The mother hears the crash. She walks into the room. She sees the broken vase on the floor and the dog is outside. She knows the boy broke it. But what does she ask?
She asks, who did that? It's a trap. She's inviting him to lie.
Yes. It's not an adult request for information. It's a parent setting a trap for a child. The boy, scared, says, the doggy did it. Now she has him. Now she doesn't just have a broken vase, she has a liar. And now she is justified in unleashing all her stored up rage.
So the payoff isn't fixing the vase. The payoff is the feeling of righteous anger.
Precisely. People who play Nijisab collect justified rage stamps. They need to feel wronged so they can feel superior. They're constantly auditing your behavior, your words, your past, just hoping to find a discrepancy so they can cash in their stamps.
I feel like we see this on social media all the time. People digging through 10-year-old tweets, just waiting to find something and say, aha, I got you.
It is the quintessential internet game. The dynamic is less about social justice and often more about the individual payoff of righteous fury. It feels good to be angry. It feels powerful to be right.
Related to this, but from the other side, is kick me.
Kick me is the flip side of Nijisab. Some people, Berne says, walk around with a psychological sign on their back that says, please don't kick me.
Which is basically daring the world to kick them.
It's a provocation. They behave in ways that almost force others to reject or punish them. The employee who is always 5 minutes late, the lover who is constantly clingy and accusatory, the friend who always says the wrong thing at a party.
And eventually the boss fires them, or the lover leaves them, or the friends stop inviting them.
And then they get their payoff. They get to sit back and say, why does this always happen to me?
That's it. That's the payoff. Self-pity. Confirmation that the world is a bad place and they are its primary victim. It's a way of structuring your whole life around rejection.
Okay, we have to talk about one of the most controversial chapters in the book. This is the game Berne calls alcoholic. And I want to be careful here because today we view addiction strictly as a disease or a neurochemical issue, and that's valid.
Right, and Berne acknowledges the physiological side of it. He's not denying that, but he's looking at the social machinery around the addiction. He argues that alcoholic, the social phenomenon, is a 5-player game. 5 players. I usually picture the alcoholic as this lonely, isolated figure.
Far from it. He says the game requires a whole cast. First, you have the alcoholic, who is the central player. Yeah. Then you have the persecutor, usually the spouse or parent, who scolds them and cleans up their messes.
Okay.
Then you have the rescuer, the doctor, or the friend who tries to fix them and gives them sage advice. You have the patsy, the one who's a sucker for a sad story and lends them money for food, which becomes liquor, often the mother.
And the fifth.
The connection, the bartender or the liquor store owner who supplies the booze but also acts as a kind of pseudo-therapist. It's a whole ecosystem.
It's a whole social club almost.
It is. And here is Berne's most radical insight. In the game of alcoholic, the drinking itself is merely a move to set up the real payoff.
I thought the drinking was the payoff, the buzz, the escape, the chemical relief.
Berne says no, that's part of it, but the social game isn't about that. If the goal was just to get drunk, you could do that alone on a desert island.
Yeah.
But the game of alcoholic is about the morning after.
The hangover.
The hangover scene, the apology, the drama, the scene where the alcoholic wakes up head throbbing, full of remorse, and says to the persecutor, "I am so sorry. I'll never do it again. I'm a terrible person."
And the persecutor says, "I can't believe you did this again. You've humiliated us."
And then eventually, after a lot of yelling or crying, they say, "Okay, I forgive you. Let's try again."
It's a cycle of sin and redemption.
Exactly. It is a way to structure an entire marriage or family life around guilt, persecution, and forgiveness. Berne argues that if you remove the other players, if the spouse refuses to scold, persecute, and the doctor refuses to save, rescue, the alcoholic is often forced to stop playing because the social reward is gone.
So they're just left with the misery of the hangover.
Without the emotional release of the apology and forgiveness drama.
That is a tough pill to swallow. It essentially says that by trying to help or scold, we are actually enabling the game. We're playing our part.
Yes. The antithesis is for the therapist or spouse to refuse to play those roles. Don't scold, don't save. It's incredibly hard to do because it feels like you're not caring. But if you scold them, you are playing the game. You are giving them the persecution. They are unconsciously seeking to justify their next drink. Well, my wife is always yelling at me, no wonder I drink.
This moves us perfectly into consulting room games because therapists and other helpers can get sucked into games too.
Oh, absolutely. The most dangerous one for people in the helping professions, doctors, therapists, social workers, even just helpful friends, is I'm only trying to help you.
IHY.
The helper gives advice. Why don't you try this? The patient or client comes back the next week and says, I tried it, it didn't work. So the helper suggests something else. I tried that too, it didn't work.
It sounds just like the yes but game.
It is the inverse. In yes, but the patient is the agent trying to stump the parent. In I'm only trying to help you, the therapist is the agent. The therapist's secret goal is to prove I'm a good and adequate parent. The patient's job in the game is to prove the therapist is inadequate.
So when the patient fails over and over, the therapist feels what? Martyred.
Exactly. I tried so hard, but they just won't get better. Some people are just ungrateful. That feeling of bewildered martyrdom is the payoff for the helper. They get to feel like the suffering saint.
And the patient gets the payoff of avoiding any actual change while proving that authority figures are useless.
Correct. The other big one in the consulting room is wooden leg.
What do you expect of a man with a wooden leg?
Right. It's the plea of infirmity. It can be a real physical disability or a psychological one. I drink because I'm Irish. I have a temper because I had a bad childhood. I can't get a job because the economy is bad.
It's using a limitation, real or as a get-out-of-jail-free card for personal responsibility.
The thesis is, I shouldn't have to play by the same rules as everyone else because of my condition. The antithesis is very sharp and very adult. The therapist asks, I don't expect anything. The question is, what do you expect?
Oof, that cuts right through it. No sympathy, just a direct question back to their own agency.
It puts the autonomy back on the patient, which is where it belongs.
So we've talked about all these games, and they're everywhere. We're all doing them. I'm recognizing myself in about 3 of these right now, and I'm not proud of it. How do we stop? What is the way out?
The first step is what we're doing right now. Awareness.
Yeah.
Recognition. You have to be able to spot the game while it's happening. You have to feel that switch inside you and realize, wait, I'm in a yes, but loop. Or wait, I'm collecting anger stamps for my Nige sob collection.
Once you see it.
Once you're aware.
You have to refuse the payoff. You have to disrupt the flow of the game. If someone plays Schlemiel, don't give them the forgiveness payoff. If someone plays kick me, don't kick them, even if they're begging for it. But Berne warns this is dangerous, right? It can be destabilizing.
It is. If you strip away someone's games, you strip away their primary way of structuring time and getting strokes. You leave them with a void. That unstructured time we talked about at the beginning. And that brings back the terror.
So if I stop playing, if it weren't for you with my spouse, we might suddenly realize we have nothing to say to each other.
You might. And that can lead to despair or a breakup. But, and this is the hopeful part of the whole book, it can also lead to autonomy.
Autonomy is the goal. That's the prize for giving up the games. What does that look like?
Berne defines it by three capacities: awareness, spontaneity, and intimacy.
Okay, awareness.
That's the ability to see and hear things as they actually are in the present moment, not as you were taught to see them by your parent. It's hearing the birds sing without hearing your father's voice telling you which species of bird it is. It's living in the here and now. This is the freedom to choose your own feelings, to not have them dictated by the game script. You don't have to be angry just because someone broke a vase. You can choose to be calm. You can choose to be amused. You have options. You can express any of your three ego states freely.
And finally, intimacy.
This is the holy grail of human relationships. Intimacy is the gain-free exchange of affection and feeling. It is candid, defenseless, and real. It's the only way to truly satisfy our stimulus hunger and structure hunger without any manipulation.
But it's risky. It's scary.
It's terrifying because there is no script. You're vulnerable. The outcome is unknown. But Berne argues it's the only way to truly live and connect with another person.
He also mentions good games, right? I thought that was an interesting point. Not all games are necessarily destructive.
True. He acknowledges that some games can be constructive. Busman's Holiday is one where people work on their time off, like a doctor helping someone at the scene of an accident because they get satisfaction from it. Or Cavalier, where a man might flirt with a woman not to seduce her, but just to make her feel good and seen for a moment.
So the ulterior motive is benevolent.
If it contributes to the well-being of the players, it can be a good game. But even then, Berne is clear that autonomy and intimacy are better.
So what does this all mean for us, for the person listening to this right now who recognizes their own life in these patterns?
It means we have a choice. We are programmed by our past, the parent. We are driven by our old fears and feelings, the child. But we have an adult. We can wake up. We can learn to analyze these transactions.
We can realize that the argument we're having for the 100th time is just a script, and we can choose to rip up the...
We can ask ourselves in the moment, what game am I playing right now? And what bad feeling prize am I trying to win? And if the prize is feeling miserable or righteous or misunderstood, maybe it's time to stop playing.
So here is your challenge for the week for everyone listening. Identify one game, just one that you play regularly. Maybe you're the yes but player at work. Maybe you play kick me in your relationships. Maybe you're a professional schlemiel.
Catch yourself in the act. Watch for the switch.
Yeah.
Watch for that moment you shift from a calm adult into a whiny child or a critical parent. That's the moment the game hooks you.
And if you're brave enough, try the antithesis. Just once. Refuse the payoff. See what happens.
It might be messy. It will definitely be awkward. But as Berne says, the alternative is to spend your life waiting for Santa Claus or rigor mortis.
On that cheery note, this has been the deep dive on games people play. A book that is, I think, more relevant today than it was in 1964.
A fascinating, if sometimes uncomfortable, look into the mirror.
Indeed. We'll see you next time. And in the meantime, don't let your spinal cord shrivel up.
Go get some real game-free strokes.
Bye.